So a lot of people who have burnout have what I mentioned was a mood disorientation essentially. Feel like their moods are always angry or they feel resentful. They feel emotionally detached from whatever's going on or even their child, and they feel trapped about being there, and they fantasize about leaving or having time to themselves or what it would look like if they were able to just control the situation. And this is where you start snowballing into this mind state, this mind frame of burnout, where it does completely obliterate you. You'll feel exhausted by these thoughts because it's constant state of I should, or I wish, or if only. All these statements are very defeatist in their own way. If you think about the words that are coming out of your mouth and the way it translates into your mind, it's just telling you that if only your circumstances were different, it could be like this. Or it's almost like if everything were to change, then it wouldn't be this way. And you're only setting yourself up for disappointment because truly you're the only person that can make those things happen. You're the person that's that's holding the pen and paper, and you're able to write your destiny. You're able to write your present and you're able to write your future. Maybe it doesn't always work out exactly as detailed, but you're able to be the creator of all that. So when you're starting to feel these moods take over you, and they're chronic and they're constant, one minute you could be really happy, next minute you can feel completely defeated, like there's no in between. It's constantly seesawing. You feel like you're at a playscape and you're watching the teeter totter just go up and down, and that's how your emotions feel. Like it could be that extreme. And when your mood is constantly out of flux, when you just can't deal with it, when your mood is just, you lose your temper really easily, lose your patience, you've lost the capability of to moderate yourself. It's just, you're not really truly happy. You're not really feeling joyful and joyous. Lots of these things are because you've felt this emotional imbalance, this turmoil happening constantly within you through your stress and how that's affecting you. And it can make you really salty. You can feel really salty about parenting. Maybe you just can't adult right now. And that's a new phrase I noticed, I don't know, within the last 5 years that a lot of adults use. They just can't adult right now because they have so many responsibilities on their shoulders. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot to deal with. And they're usually, their moving parts are astronomically huge. So if you're noticing that you wake up in a mood, start there. Are you in a mood when you wake up? Are you dreading the day that's coming? Do you have thoughts that make you feel really sad or defeated the minute you wake up? But if you set yourself up in that mind state in the first awakening part of your day, when you wake up and come back to this world on a conscious level, if you have these thoughts, these emotions, these feelings towards your day, towards people around you, then it's gonna be like that. And it will feel like that. And you will have a low mood all the time. And I'm not saying moods don't change. Moods constantly change through the day. We have a lot of moods in and out throughout the day. But when you notice you're in a low mood or you're in a non static mood all the time, then this is something that you will get exhausted with because you're unable to regulate yourself. And all these things are triggering you to be unable to regulate yourself. So perhaps a huge mess occurred, but you're already stressed because you're making dinner and doing some tutoring, left them to do their thing, and they made a huge mess. And then you're stressed out about the mess. You're stressed out about them doing that and making the mess. There's so many components there. And so, how do you respond when you're in that mood? Most people have a tone to their language or the words that they use. Most people don't maybe use the right words. It sounds very confrontational or aggressive. Maybe You react by, this is extreme, but it could happen, throwing all the things on the floor, making a huge mess and reacting that way. So there's so many different types of reactions that parents would make in that situation. Someone making a mess on top of all the other things that you're doing. There's so many different reactions. And so how can you respond better so your child will respond without it backfiring, and also with them learning some outcomes from this? So having a mood around all this can really set us up for learning about what's going on with ourselves, learn how we're dealing with things or not dealing with things, and also set that precedence up for the child to learn about how to deal with these types of situations moving forward. So perhaps if that mess did happen another time, they'd be capable of being aware that maybe it upset you at that time, and they'll go ahead and automatically clean it up or deal with it or maybe not make it again. So there's so many outcomes of our actions, and our mood plays such a fundamental part about it, because your mood can set the precedence of how the instruction or the words or the comment or whatever comes out of your mouth. And the mood sets your tone. And so if you notice your tone is coming off in more of an aggressive manner, of course, sometimes it's necessary to be stern, but it's what your child can learn from that. So maybe think to yourself, and I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if it'll work, but perhaps try. What if you were to put yourself in that case, in their shoes? You were the child and your parent witnessed you doing whatever that upset them. How would you want it dealt with? How would you hear it so you wouldn't do it again? How would you hear it so you would learn something from it, and that it's something that you know it's a good thing or a bad thing? So maybe think about that, because sometimes aggression doesn't always work. Sometimes coming off confrontational or combative or loud or any of these things don't really work. Sometimes coming off gently and calmly and kind don't really work. So it's really a gauge in the situation, how you can deal with it, and really put it yourself in their shoes and see. I mean, of course, we're all rationally thinking because we're an adult, but if you were a child and you just took it all away and you heard that, you heard someone tell you something that you did was wrong or it wasn't okay, how would you want someone to deliver that information to you? And how could you learn from it, if you would learn from it? And so just the whole delivery makes all the difference. And I think that all stems from our mood and where we're at in the day as things progress and how that changes through the day. And so creating some sort of stability, like an even keel mood. Sometimes, yes, it may have a bit of a rhythm, which is fine. But overall, like, are you able to bounce back from that? Are you able to regain yourself after that stressful event? Are you able to deal with it on a level where you're unaffected after and you can move on and not allow this to be ruining your day or a part of your day or sullying your day or focused on it for the day, which then brings down the mood? Like, these are all things to consider. So the long-term effects of the act, this is something to really consider, how it affects your mood. If you're able to let it go, move on, and be unaffected by it and carry on with the day, then I think that's a really good place to be. But if you're holding on to it, it creates anger, resentment, and then you start going into these thoughts of guilt for doing that or whatnot, then you're punishing yourself and you're really gonna hurt your own self, because it may not be that detrimental, but you're allowing it to evolve that way in your mind. So, really bringing some awareness. And the mood is such a huge thing. Like, we express ourselves through the tone of our language, through the words that we use. So, when you say words that may have an underlying meaning to them, so so much to the point where their interpretation of whatever you're saying could be negative or positive, that's when it's not going to help either. So, really, like, it's really about the type of words that you use, the way you're delivering it through your tone, and even like your facial expressions and your body language. So all of these things should be considered when you're feeling like your mood is taking over, because this will also help you. And this will also benefit you, because if you can feel these things in your body, then you can catch yourself. You can be aware of yourself a lot sooner than before things start coming out of your mouth or reactions start happening. It really does help you break that pattern of exhausting yourself in that mannerism. And a lot of things are beyond parents' controls. Of course, you're a parent, so you're trying to control everything, but there's a lot of things that are outside of your control. And this can really make you face a lot of challenges because sometimes it's impossible to deal with all of these things. And so when you're starting to feel like you don't have control over things, then it's really time to step back and maybe reevaluate what you can and cannot control and how you can deal with things when you can't control them. So, do you go down a spiral downward when you can't control things? Do you start getting OCD tendencies when you can't control things? Do you start acting out because you can't control things? Like, what is happening with you when you can't control things? Because there's a lot of entities around us that we can't control. There's a lot of entities we can have influence over, but we can't control. So, how do we deal with things when we can't control them? And maybe perhaps bringing some self compassion is really important during that time, because you can't control everything. And so, when things are so beyond that and you don't have adequate support around you, just being compassionate towards yourself. Realize that you can feel good enough. You can feel that same enthusiasm, that same gentle part of you allowing yourself to harness the self compassion without losing control and losing yourself. And so, how do parents deal with this stress? I always find it fascinating that they can deal with it on such a bountiful level where they can bounce back, but just don't suppress it. And that's what I'm very concerned is of the amount of parents that do suppress it, because they have to put an outward appeal, and they constantly have to show this face that they're doing a good job, they're doing well, they're okay, nothing's happening, got it all together, so on. So there should be no shame tied to this. It should just be part of the human experience and something that may happen to us, and know that you can recover from it. So, bringing some short term things to deal with the stress is so important as a parent, because there's only so much time in the day that you have for yourself, that you have for your children, that you just have in general. Perhaps you're a working person, perhaps you're taking care of the whole household as well. There's so many responsibilities. So your time is of the essence. We know time is against you. We know that there's not enough time in the day, but how can you allow yourself to deal with some of these stressors as the day moves on, as the day progresses, so you don't fall into burnout, so you don't succumb to the stress? And so, some simple things that you can consider as you rework and redesign yourself as a parent, redesign yourself as a person. Some things that can really help you cope through your day onward is some really simple things to tune into your body. As I mentioned, self awareness, number one in my books. Breathing is such an easy thing. Like, I don't got to pay for it, I don't got to look it up, I don't need to do anything. I just need to breathe. And just learning some simple breathing patterns could take you out of a stressful situation and allow yourself to create that degree of separation from the problem and yourself. So, just hypothetically say something's action live right now happening in front of you, and it's triggering you. It's making you feel ways about it. You're feeling upset, you're feeling irritated, you're feeling angry, you're feeling annoyed by it all. And typically your response will be to open your mouth and say something about it. But when you start noticing that that thing, that situation is triggering you, what I encourage you to do is literally stay with yourself, be with yourself. Take a moment to think to yourself. And a moment takes can be like 1 second. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes. But bringing that mindful thought process of being with yourself, being alone with yourself, and really breathing it through. So for me, I have different breathing techniques based on the situation. But for me, I do breathe in, count, breathe out, count. And I have different counting patterns on where I feel I need to be for the day. And breathing can just be like the easiest thing that you do. It can be so simple that it's just easily integrated with whichever situation you're in. And when you're able to focus on that, then you're able to detach yourself from what you're witnessing, what's triggering you, and allow yourself then to be back with yourself and then allow your mind to come up with another way than what your habits are of dealing with that, what typically would be your response. So when you're able to create that degree of separation, imagine what you can do for everything else around you if you're able to do that. So breathing really gives you the capability of just allowing yourself to gather yourself, bring your thoughts closer, bring them back to yourself, come full circle, that 360 analogy again, and come about it a different way. See if there's an alternate way to deal with it. And I always guarantee you there always will be. So, really just practicing breathing in the onset of things. And it doesn't have to be like 10 minutes worth of breathing. Like I said, it could just be a couple of breaths to give you that. So, you need to just kind of practice and be patient with yourself and just find where that level is for you to create that calm, calming, quiet sensation within your mind, which then you'll start noticing over your body. Maybe you're able to not feel so tense. Maybe you're able to relax a little bit more. Maybe you're able to not hold things in your body. Maybe you're just able to let go. Maybe you don't even need to say anything. Maybe you're able to just let it go and you're unaffected by it. So there's so many outcomes from just doing that simple strategy. So breathing is really very simple. And it's about going back to simple things. Just like a child, things are simple for them. They don't complicate things. We complicate things because we know too much. But for them, they don't complicate things at all. It's very black and white. So bringing it back to those simple techniques, simple analogies, simple ways to deal with things can really help reduce the parental stress upon you. And maybe your relationship will improve with yourself, which is the number one relationship you need to have, which then your relationship will improve with your child because you're not having these outbursts. You're not losing that trust with them.